What if every revolution you have ever read about in history class was actually a failure?
Oh, wow. Starting big today.
I mean, think about it. Like, what if overthrowing a dictator just guarantees you become the next one?
Welcome to today's deep dive. We are looking at a custom breakdown of a philosophical treatise called The Pramod Effect by Dr. Pramod Ambadasrao Pawar, published by Penguin Publications.
Yeah, and the mission for you today as the listener is decoding how society can move from this endless, exhausting conflict to what Pawar calls relational oneness.
Right. And doing all that without losing what makes you, you. Okay, let's unpack this. Pawar says we get stuck because of how we gather and split. Right?
Exactly. He calls it the UDDU cycle, which stands for Unify to Divide and Divide to Unify.
I like to think of society as this giant breathing lung. Like we breathe in, we compress and unify, but eventually, that feels too tight.
So they have to breathe out.
Exactly. We expand into these diverse, separate factions, but then we get way too fragmented and the lung just has to contract back together again. Well, what's fascinating here is how Pawar frames that movement. He calls it the Monozpendulum.
The Monozpendulum.
Yeah, because most of us look at the world as a strict binary. Like you are either unified or you are divided.
Right. It's one or the other.
But Pawar argues we actually exist on a dynamic, oscillating continuum, swinging between wanting to belong to a unified whole and needing our own distinct identity. That is just a natural rhythm.
So it is not a glitch in the system. The breathing out, like the diversity, that is not the problem at all.
Not at all.
The problem is when that expansion turns into a hierarchy. How we divide turns into how we fight. But I am struggling with his solution here.
How so?
Well, the text talks about resisting these hierarchies. But wait, doesn't resisting a power structure just create a brand new oppressive power structure? Like if I overthrow a tyrant, aren't I just becoming the new guy at the top of the pyramid?
Oh, absolutely. It is an endless loop. I mean, Michel Foucault famously showed that power constantly generates resistance. But that resistance operates inside the exact same power matrix. You flip the pyramid, but the pyramid is still there.
So you don't actually break the loop by flipping it.
No, Pawar argues you break it by dissolving the pyramid altogether. He calls this depowering the powers.
Depowering the powers. So how does that work?
Instead of chaotic revolution or trying to defeat the other side, we neutralize the ego. We shift from a coercive power over model to a collaborative power with model.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because to actually neutralize that ego, Pawar uses this kind of philosophical math.
The master formula.
Right, which is 1 minus 1 equals 0 equals 1.
It sounds a bit confusing at first.
Yeah, like if I am a 1 and the other is a 1, how does subtracting them equal 0? I like to think of it like wiping a cluttered whiteboard entirely clean.
Oh, look at that.
That is the zeroness. You have to erase the mess before you can draw something that actually unifies us.
And what is left is what Pawar calls Zeroness Within.
Which leads to a conscious oneness, that final one in the formula.
Exactly. But we should clarify, this isn't just, meaningless nihilism.
Oh, definitely not.
It is anchored by what he calls the gravity of groundedness. That just means this high-level philosophy has to actually address physical, embodied, earthly suffering. It forces us to ask how this zeroness changes the way we actually treat each other.
So what does this all mean for you? Like, if zeroness clears the ego from our minds, how does that actually change your digital life or, say, the tools you use?
Well, we see it immediately in this technological facet.
Yeah.
Pawar argues that AI plus human intelligence must equal humane human intelligence.
Like HHI.
Right, HHI. Because algorithms often just optimize for whatever keeps our eyes glued to the screen, right? So technology must be actively guided by human dignity.
So by applying zeroness, programmers stop building AI to dominate attention and instead build it to collaborate.
Exactly. And that same mechanism of seeing the other as human, it scales up to geopolitics too. That is his anti-war doctrine.
Wait, really? How does zeroness apply to war?
The core proposition is that no human is born as the permanent enemy of another. When you apply that zero, you interrupt the psychological dehumanization that makes industrialized violence possible.
Because you realize the enemy has the exact same basic physical needs as you do.
Exactly.
It all comes down to breaking that illusion of separation. Which brings us to one final provocative thought to leave you with today. We have talked about human-to-human oneness. But what happens when you apply this to the ecological facet?
Oh, that is the ultimate test of the framework, because ecological collapse happens for the exact same reason human oppression does.
We view the environment as an other to be dominated.
Exactly.
So go back to that giant breathing lung we started with. If true oneness requires dissolving the boundary between self and other, what happens if you stop viewing the Earth as some external resource?
And start seeing it as a literal extension of your very own self.
Right. How would treating the planet as your own breathing lung alter the very next decision you make today?